Welcome to Global Connections on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. Today we'll talk about the deep state. What is it and what's it all about? Our guest for the show to help us understand this is Roopmati Khandekar, geopolitical analyst. Welcome to the show, Roopmati.
Aloha, Jay. Thank you for having me on your show. Always my pleasure.
Deep state is a multifaceted term in national and international politics. We need to understand its meaning and its influence in the current American political climate and the international geopolitical climate. And we want to know from you how that works. So tell us, this is a hard one, what is the definition of deep states? We hear that term so much, but what does it really mean?
Jay, this term as deep state has been flashing everywhere in the clips that we see, and we kind of wonder what are they talking about. So you can broadly define deep state. Two words to describe it: shadow government. But technically, if we go to see that when in a democratic state, instead of the popularly elected representatives, a group, one set of people or a group of people decide what is best for the nation. They decide what policies the government should take. They decide when, how, and why things should be done. In fact, these non-elected group of people have a domain of power which they exercise without any record, without any accountability, and without any face. So, kind of that deep state is a pseudo government which operates behind this elected government. So, we need to understand the nitty gritties of this term, Jay, because in international politics, whenever we hear the word deep state, it directly, without any doubt, sets your mind on American interference in states abroad, in their elections abroad, in their regime changes. But it's not so. It is about America itself. And we have many more examples which we will discuss during our program where the deep state operates. And this is known as a shadow government because it works under the elected government. So, Jay, let's discuss first the different places of the world in which it exists. So, first and foremost, let's go to Turkey. This concept was known as the derin devlet. So, in this Turkey's political structure, this concept of derin devlet was an anti-democratic coalition. And who was it formed of? This was intelligence, military, judiciary, security agencies, media, high-ranking people from these influential people, not high-ranking, influential people from these. They formed this coalition, and they use this coalition to suppress the secular ideology. The journalists, the activists, the politicians were threatened who did not follow this. So that is one example, Turkey. The second one is Pakistan, Jay, and we had a program on this, which we discussed that Pakistan never has had a prime minister who has completed their term of office. Either they have been assassinated, or they have been like Bhutto, Benazir Bhutto, or they have been arrested like the previous Prime Minister Imran Khan. So the army has played such a army along with the security intelligence agency known as ISI in Pakistan to change the governments. There's a big example that Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was negotiating with Vajpayee of India in 1999. And at the same time, Musharraf, who was the army chief, was waging a war against India, and he took over power and became the prime minister. This is what a deep state is. Not elected people, they come into power. Then you have Egypt, Jay. Egypt, when Hosni Mubarak had an autocratic government, he himself developed a parallel deep state with elements from the military and security agencies and intelligence agencies intended to crush any uprising against him. So you have a president himself trying to do this. And during Arab Spring, if you remember, this deep state, Jay, sided with the democratic forces and bought President Morsi. into power. But this deep state was smart, and they just kept him in power for 1 year. They showed the people that they were going for democratic this, and within 1 year, they established military rule in Egypt. So that was how the deep state operated in Egypt. And Jay, now let's come to the US and see how it has been in, it started in 1941 after the Pearl Harbor incident, when Franklin Roosevelt uh, wanted to consult what he would do. The Congress advised him to go for a full-fledged attack. But Roosevelt turned to Wild Bill Donovan, who was a Wall Street lawyer. Now, this Wall Street lawyer advised Franklin Roosevelt to create a Officers Strategic Service, OSS it was called, and it was given immense powers. Jay. And Franklin Roosevelt made this Donovan the head of this security agencies. And two things Jay it had. One is to protect the civilian rights, and second was to have security within the national borders. So, two good things about good ideals that they had to work for, and they moved towards that. So, this was the genesis, OSS was the genesis of modern intelligence. After the Second World War, we have the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, and you have the MI16 in Britain, which is like they have this a range of operations from covert operations, Jay, to extensive network operatives to ensure this national security and protection of civilians. So, Jay, in Iran also, when Mossadegh decided to nationalize the oil fields and wanted audit of the British. The British were said that they discovered oil in Iran and they would take the entire income from oil, and only 16% would be given to the Iranian authorities. 16% also would be calculated by them. So President Mossadegh said that he wanted an audit in Iran itself. What happens? MI16 comes in and says that they start using media as propaganda for anti-communist regime, and the regime changes. And when the regime changes, the control comes back to the British oil company, which was in Iran. So that was one operative in Iran, which the deep state of UK used to their benefit, Jay. And back to America, Jay. In 1964, David Weiss and Thomas Ross wrote this book known as The Invisible Government, in which this is considered one of the first documents of the deep state, because they said that foreign policy and national security are controlled more by unelected officials rather than the elected representatives. So you then have the Cold War era, and Cold War was a big, what do you say? There were many theaters for this play out of the deep state. Jay. There was a Operation Paperclip, in which in 1945, where you had the German engineers, mechanics, the scientists who were developing these nuclear weapons. They were recruited by the Western allies rather than the Russian forces. So you had a lot of covert activity at that time too, because you didn't want the Nazi falling into the Russian hands, right? And so you have John F. Kennedy, Jay, the Cuba incident, when he wanted Cuba to be on the side of America, and Cuba refused, and Russia started providing them with nuclear weapons, with everything. And then there was a photograph taken in which you saw that right next to the border of the US, there was a launch pad for nuclear weapons. And that was the time when John F. Kennedy was advised to take prompt action to attack Cuba. And very infamously, he's got this, there are pictures of the Georgetown party, in which he had taken advice at this party from his friends from the bureaucracy, judiciary, intelligence, who Kennedy relied more than the officials who were supposed to guide him. The so all these are examples of how the deep state operates in different parts.
Donald Trump talks about dismantling various departments with the help of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. Are they talking about the same deep state? He seems to be referring to the deep state, and it's sort of an enemy of his government. On the other hand, he's also using the deep state. Where does the deep state fit with Donald Trump?
Jay, what a term we have to study, we are discussing right now. It's got so many uh, uh, facets to it. And, it can be manipulated by anyone. And Donald Trump is manipulating this term to his benefit. Because when you say you want to cut down deep state elements, we don't know what he's talking about. Is he talking of cutting down the bureaucracy or his reliance on unofficial members? Because overall, if you go to see, there are four aspects of the deep state: finance, your uh, mm, industrial elements. You have this intelligence agencies and the NGO and the media. So out of this, he's got such a broad spectrum to act on, and he's manipulating this to a very very dangerous extent. When he talks about cutting down the deep state, he talks of targeting the media. He talks about reducing the bureaucratic workforce. So all these things become very dangerous because we know bureaucratic appointments outlive the term of a president. So whether you're red or blue elected, the bureaucrat will keep on doing his work. He's like the backbone or structure which forms the government. The president will come and go. So if you disturb the bureaucracy, how will it function?
Yeah, well, it can't. But, it strikes me from what you've said that despite the fact that we have only really been conscious of this deep state phenomenon for only a few years, really, it always exists. The people who hold the power will always talk to, informal advisors who are deep state advisors. Where it gets into trouble is when these advisors get together and form organizations and work together, sort of in the nature of vigilantes who want to change national policy or international policy. And when they get to be conspirators and vigilantes working against the legitimate government, you get into a problem. Are we in that problem now?
Yes, Jay, yes, so very much, yes. What you spoke right now is the gist of why the deep state is notorious. The term deep state is notorious. These conglomerations that these people make and then influence, undue influence, which is exercised, is what causes this deep state. Otherwise, deep state functions to, like you said, to protect national interests, maybe to advise the president where he cannot take decisions on an official level, to make decisions unofficially. So all these things are very important, Jay. Roosevelt, Kennedy, all these people cannot have such a different mindset. They all have thought about why it's important to consult outside the government to get opinions outside. A villain who comes to mind currently is George Soros, because the multi-billionaire that he has opened this Open Society Foundation, Jay, opened it in countries in which he vocally expresses his desire that he's not satisfied with them. He wants to change the governments there, which he himself declares. And Jay, he interferes in the elections. And when there is a closing down of his, he colludes with the opposition parties, goes against the ruling parties. He undermines the democratic processes. One good example is of India. He used the campuses, university campuses, and minds of students. With, of course, there was money involved to get these students that fervor to protest against Israel. They did not know anything which was happening in the Middle East, but they were protesting so vehemently in the university campuses. So he was the prime funder of these anti-Israel campaigns, and especially in places which can be these minds. University minds are easy to influence. He is using the money in the wrong places. This money should go in the right direction. This was absolutely wrong. And then to see him receive one of the highest civilian honors was let down, because George Soros is self-declared power monger.
You know, one thing about George Soros is that he's a billionaire. And this
Yes.
raises the whole question, that continuum that I described a minute ago, where you have people who are advisors to legitimate government, who may step in and help, $1 a year or no pay at all, and they are helpful. But there's a continuum where they get more powerful, become vigilante, develop a group that's in a kind of conspiratorial relationship, and this relationship, sort of like vigilantism, has a mission to change things, to change policies, not to advise a legitimate government, but maybe to work against a legitimate government. And part of that, I get, is money. It's these PACs under Citizens United. It's George Soros as a billionaire, and presto digito, here we have Elon Musk. Here we
Yes.
have the plutocrat, billionaires, the people in the tech industry who are all, doing fealty to Donald Trump, but maybe also other things. So I think that when you have this coalescing of these billionaires, and you put them together, like Soros with the money, and Elon Musk with Ramaswamy, then you have a bit of a problem. And I suggest to you, well, I'm asking you really, do we have that problem where the billionaires get together and they create their own mission, their own policy, and try to foist it on legitimate government? That sounds very dangerous to government, dangerous to democracy, and dangerous to everyone. Is that happening?
Jay, this will not happen in a democratic society for sure, because in democracy protects these people. Like, for example, in Russia, the oligarchs can all come together, but they cannot do anything to Putin. Or Putin, can crush these oligarchs in a moment's time. He can seize their properties, he can freeze their assets. They cannot go to any court, they cannot go for any appeal. In a democratic society, these billionaires operate without fear and exercise their influence because of the freedom of expression, fundamental right of your own thought and liberty, Jay. So that's why they're protected by the very institutions that they would threaten. So we are in paradox that we have in nailing them down, Jay. So they have kind of a free hand because of their money, the power that comes with the money, and the political influence that they exercise is directly proportional. We have nothing to rein them in, Jay.
In this case, Trump is essentially controlling them. That's sort of like Putin controlling the oligarchs in Russia.
Yes.
But I suppose if it wasn't Trump, or if Trump became less charismatic, less powerful, and these oligarchs decided to take more power, we would have a problem, and democracy would be at risk. Now, so let's talk about Elon Musk. Where does he fit in all of this? He's an oligarch for sure. He's in effect the leader of the oligarchs. A lot of people call him the co-president, which means he has more power than he should. Is this going the wrong direction? Is this within the model that Trump wants? Or is this something that will blow up on him later?
Jay, Trump is very, very selfish, and he first, because Elon Musk is not born in US, he sees him as no threat to his presidency or his future presidency, or whatever. If he changes the law, we don't know. But he views Elon Musk as a pair because he wants his out of the world agenda. Nothing is clashing with his ideals. Elon Musk has an agenda completely different away from him. If you Donald Trump is such a individual. If you have a clashing agenda with him, he will never agree. If you side with him, or if you play up to his gallery, he will take you in. But if you go against him or oppose him, he will never ever like the person. He's a very black and white kind of a person, Jay. He doesn't go into the gray zones. And if it's black with him, he will most definitely keep the person away. So Elon Musk comes with the agenda of colony on Mars and his space program and internet and reducing the everything is fine with Donald Trump because it doesn't interfere with his totalitarian power hungry agenda.
So on the one hand, you have described what the deep state is. It's not the bureaucracy. It's people with another role to play and maybe another agenda. But it is not the democracy that Trump wants to reduce or terminate. And Elon Musk, with his Doge thing, is going to help him do that. The problem I have, though, is that when you take away the bureaucracy, you don't necessarily take away the deep state. You terminate, some 700,000 federal employees. You're not necessarily having any effect on the deep state. And in fact, my observation is that Trump, although he criticizes the deep state and he tries to make us afraid of the deep state, he is in fact encouraging the deep state, if not creating the deep state. Because what is Elon Musk and the oligarchs but a bunch of deep state guys? They want to reduce federal bureaucracy, but at the same time, they want to retain their special contracts with the federal government, or what's left of it. So they become the deep state, and they are not accountable, and they are more powerful than they should be. And although Trump may know what they're doing, may give them license to do it, it seems to me that when you take away the bureaucracy, you're still left with the deep state. And the deep state is not an example of democracy, but of corruption. What do you think?
Yeah, so right, Jay. When they're going to streamline this bureaucracy under the guise of deep state cleaning, they're going to leave back those bureaucrats who will be yes men for these people. And when it's yes men, all the agenda is going to be passed. Now, any person, any bureaucrat, any individual, any layman will have political inclinations, but that doesn't affect your bureaucratic responsibilities. And that's the way bureaucracy has been working for America, that it's been an infrastructure, it's been a skeleton for the American functioning. And Jay, like you said, rightly said, that bureaucracy is not the only element in the deep state. There is media, there is financial tycoons, there is intelligence individuals and institutions, there is the media and NGOs who are involved. So all these people make up the deep state in conglomeration. They can't just target bureaucracy. So now this fuzzy term has given them so much of power to do whatever is in their hands. And see, we can't handpick this bureaucrat is part of the deep state. This is deep state. It is a behind the curtains kind of process that takes place. It's not an overt operation that you exactly can pinpoint. So under that, nobody has the right of questioning him.
Really, Roopmati, what you describe is a situation where the bureaucracy may be diminished, will be diminished if you let Elon Musk have his way and Trump have his way. But then the deep state becomes their state. It's no longer deep. It's unknown to us. It's hidden, as you say. It's behind the curtain, but it's controlled by fellows like Trump and Elon Musk. So the deep state is a kind of an alternative government that they create out of whole cloth, while they diminish, the real government, the legitimate government. So this is of great concern because the deep state, in that context, has no accountability to us. It's not a matter of representative government. It's not controlled by Congress or necessarily by the Supreme Court. It is only controlled by the charismatic individual, the demagogue, who has created it and built it in his own image. And I think that's what's happening. Do you feel that's what's happening?
Yeah, Jay. See, in all the examples that we gave, deep state had different implications and different connotations in each of the examples. There was no repetition of any example that we said, yeah, deep state was the military. It acted same in Turkey, Egypt, Pakistan. No, Turkey was different. Pakistan was Egypt was different. So US is different. So this is cannot be a very set term. And when the government of efficiency is open, Jay, firstly, it's a new part of the government which is given a power, which is given a role and responsibility to cut down the government. So he's entangled this to such a this extent that we cannot make sense of what he wants. And two people, Elon Musk and Ramaswamy, at the head of this, Jay, they are going to have a free hand. The point is that they both have a free hand at manipulation, at deletion, at modification, and whoever is left, Jay, that those people really are. It's a big threatening situation that they are going to be absolute yes men. There is going to be no hampering in their bureaucratic process, because if a government passes any law or any bill, there is always impediments of the bureaucratic control, or they advise that you should not do this, and so that will be absent.
Yeah, but I want to pick up on a point you mentioned earlier, Roopmati, and that is that part of the concept, part of the process of a deep state is to intervene and influence other nations, the affairs, the politics, the power in other nations. And I wouldn't have associated this except for the fact that Elon Musk is off there in Germany supporting the AfD, which is not the legitimate government, but only a faction, an extreme right-wing pro-Putin faction, an anti-Semitic faction, a neo-Nazi faction. He's out there supporting them orally, visibly, publicly. And then he's doing similar things in the UK and maybe in other countries too in Europe. So he is de facto a representative of Trump and thus the United States increasingly. And he is visibly intervening and influencing the political affairs, the power structure of other nations in Europe. Why does the deep state in the US require this or suggest it? And what effect is Elon Musk seeking? And why do we have deep states that grow from one country to another? I know it's a hard question.
So, Jay, in the US, because there's a regime change, the deep state elements will also change. And so that's why we have the pro Biden administration deep state elements, which will keep in the shadow, keep low, and maybe go underground, leave their positions and go to different positions. And you'll have new operatives of the deep state. So, whether Trump says he wants to get rid of the deep state or not, he is going to have this unofficial conglomerate who's going to advise him more. Where does he work from more? From his golf resort, not from the office. That is itself is a deep state center over there. So when he sends Elon Musk as a roving ambassador, and he favors the right wing regimes all over the world, it's a clear portrayal of what he wants to, which nations he wants to side with, which he wants to leave. And Jay, Trump is so vocal about this. He says that he doesn't want to be part of the deep state, and that is why he signed out of the Paris Accord. So he is going to put every decision of his as trying to eliminate the deep state. Now, the deep state has become a hoo-ha for us, and we have to get scared of it. And whatever Trump says, that is going to be eliminating the deep state. So he's used it fantastically to his advantage.
We've been touching on this through our discussion, but Trump is talking out of both sides of his mouth. He's been criticizing the deep state as if we should be afraid of it, but he is creating his own deep state, and he's really taking advantage of the term or the concept himself, talking out of both sides of his mouth and using that term and concept. But what I get in Elon Musk is that these things he's doing in Europe are frightening in the sense that they all somehow relate to regime change in various countries, in Europe and possibly elsewhere. You have election interference in Europe and possibly elsewhere. You have funding of anti-national, anti-legitimate elements, and creating opposition parties, really messing in. If Russia were doing that in the U.S., we would be mighty offended. If China were doing that in the U.S., we'd be mighty offended. But when Trump goes and criticizes Justin Trudeau and tries to bring him down, effectively creating the circumstances of a regime change, and Elon Musk is trying to do the same thing in Germany and maybe the UK and maybe others, we have an extension of Trump's power to do chaos, to be the biggest guy on the block, to control the resulting regime change governments. I can only think that that's part of his larger plan, whether he thinks about it that way or not. That's the direction it seems to be going. Do you agree?
Yes, Jay, yes, he is very shrewd. And if he had not appointed Elon Musk as the head of the government of efficiency, Department of Efficiency in the government, he would have been deep state for Trump. So he has effectively put him from an unelected person to being an official representative of the government, and remove the ambiguity of a deep state tag on Elon Musk. So he has done that to bring Elon Musk into the mainstream politics. And deep state is behind the curtains. So when Trump called on Trudeau and openly spoke about this, and Trump literally he has threatened with tariffs and all these things, and because Trudeau was already leading a falling economy, he doesn't want to take the blunt of the adverse effects of Trump's tariff policy. He's preferred to run away from the entire scenario. So Trudeau was inefficient in his governance. That is a different part of, but it effectively became that Trump has brought him out of power. So Trump is very, very aggressive in his political agenda, Jay, very head on in his. I mean, in these 20 days, we have seen so many decisions taken, only the executive orders waiting to be signed. So we have two presidents who are going head on. Even Biden is signing the same amount of decisions, and Trump is also going head on. So this is a little bit scary because they have to undo. He has to spend part of his time to undo what Biden has done, and Biden's his successor will have to do the same thing again. So America has to progress, irrespective of the deep state.
But it strikes me from what you say that it's transactional. Everything for Trump is transactional. Yes. If he's able to put AfD in power by virtue of Elon Musk's remarks in Germany, and AfD ultimately succeeds to be able to name the prime minister or the coalition that runs Germany, then they owe Musk, they owe Trump, yes. And Trump therefore has this kind of credit against them, and he will have greater power over Germany because they are indebted. The people who rule Germany, who have been elevated to in that regime change, they are indebted to him, and that goes for every country where he is trying this. So this is not only power in the U.S., it's global power, and this is the way you do it, or at least one of the ways you do it. It's not a kinetic war. It's a political war. It's a propaganda war, and Trump is engaged in it through Elon Musk and maybe others. It's not a happy time. And when he talks about draining the swamp, remember that? He is the swamp. He's draining the swamp, but he's creating the swamp. It's his own swamp. That's what's happening here. So I'd like to make you Secretary of State. Maybe I should make you president this time. And here we are faced with, this deep state problem, this Trump constructed swamp problem, this Elon Musk efficiency that leads to propaganda in Europe and elsewhere. How do you stop that? We have to protect our democracy, representative government. The more power we give to the legitimate government, the better off we are. In this case, the legitimate government is becoming, what's your word, fuzzy. Um, and if you were the president, how would you clean it up? It doesn't sound so easy to me, but what would you do?
CJ, when America has maintained its position as the hegemon of the international system, there has been a huge study on this that American policies they remain steady to America's progress, irrespective of who is elected, who is not. So, is it not the deep state that dictates the terms which keeps the state going to the best of its national policies, national benefits, and all this? Residents and political affiliations will change every 4 years, but the American policy long term has to be decided by the bureaucrats, the policymakers, the intelligence sources, and all this makes up the deep state. Now, Jay, when they have used this term in such a fearful slot, we don't know how to react to it. And when he says the deep state now, we kind of fear it. And before we started the program, you only call it shadow government, all these things. It's kind of scares you and puts you in a zone where you don't know what's coming up. Once you understand that what happens behind the scenes, now Trump is changing the entire agenda to his policies. America has never been just a pro-right government uh, propagating nation. It has been just American interest first, national interest first is the main thrust of foreign policy in any country. And today we are sidelining it to such an extent that, say, a matter of 22 decades, 3 decades, you don't want China to overtake. So it has to all be in the long term, Jay. And we have politicians who are very short term today. They don't have this thinking beyond what will happen after a few decades.
I would say that's absolutely true. And my sense of it is that a lot of politicians and acolytes around Trump do not understand this whole process we've been discussing about how he's replacing, the bureaucracy with his own deep state. He's draining the swamp and creating his own swamp, and all of that to enhance his own power, and in the process to diminish our representative government, our democracy, our constitutional democracy. So when you put it all together, it's pretty scary because those who could stop him aren't, because they don't understand, they don't see it. Well, I'm glad we discussed it, Roopmati. We're out of time. We'll have to leave it there, but I think this has been a very valuable discussion. Roopmati Khandekar, geopolitical analyst for ThinkTech Hawaii. Thanks so much, Roopmati. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. Thanks to our viewers and listeners for watching and listening. Aloha.
Aloha, Jay. Thank you very much.